Hi. Okay, so the first thing I want to say to everyone is just a bit of advice that typically happens at this stage of the assignment for everyone. What I want everyone to think about is this motion graphic working like a television advertisement. You want to gradually bring your viewer, your audience into it and gradually exit them out. Sometimes when things happen too abruptly, it's just too much of kind of a shock, and it makes it very difficult for people to read. So you want to ease them in and ease them out. I like to think about it like a play where the curtains lift at the beginning of a play, the lights slowly come on, and then the play. And then at the end of the play, you have the opposite, where the lights dim and then the curtains close. I want you to think about that so that you're gracefully bringing us in and then allowing us to digest everything that you've put into these really complex motion graphics. So Yuritsa, let's take a look at yours. Sometimes when I'm recording a video and playing a video, it doesn't work too well. So if this gets a little fragmented, just know that I'll recap at the end. Okay, so this shows me that you have a strong understanding of the timeline feature. It's moving very fast. As the viewer, I'd like it to slow down quite a bit. I think that all of this comes in very nicely. But then once you have all the words in, you have to give me a couple of moments and then, let me sit with all the words and the message for a little while, not a little while, a couple of seconds, so that someone can read everything. Sorry, I'm trying to move some stuff out. Okay. There we go. You want it to, bring all the words in, give it a couple of pauses, and then move to the next poster. And then you have this swipe up, which I think works really well. And this comes in. That all makes sense. Again, same thing. So you see how is her kind of comes in incorrectly. Even if that wasn't there, you want equality is not a privilege. You want it to sit on the screen a little bit longer so that your viewer can have some time to read all of the words, make sense of it as a sentence, and then look at the character and the pattern and all that kind of stuff. Education is her. I think that works, and then you want to have a kind of closing of the curtains at the end. Okay, Fiona, let's take a look. Again, I would, let those kind of fade in a little bit more. So go from like a solid off-white sort of color and then fade in all of these elements. And I like that a lot. I'm wondering if you could do a little bit more here. Could those hands be two layers that originally start as the link is, is connected, and then you have it kind of shake and break free, so that you can work a little bit more with the complexity of the timeline. Then that's a nice pause there. I think that works. There we go. Take a first step. I think that works as well. Very nice. Take back control. Okay, so the one thing that I would ask is, would your audience know what they're taking control of? Is this message clear enough that the intended audience would know what you mean by taking back control? Control from what? Just kind of think about that. With the lighthouse as a very strong symbolic shape, and it might be that you kind of have a blinking light in the background so that, again, you're using the timeline even more comprehensively than what you have now. And then at the end of this, again, the curtains closing so that we can sort of be gracefully guided out of your message. Okay, so I'm not sure whose this is because the file's not named with first name, last name. You can see it here correctly in your classmates. I'm also looking at the layers panel, and it doesn't appear that the file is set up correctly. So I should see all the individual layers in here when the file has been set up properly. Let's take a look at Fiona's here and see. So you can see in the intro, there's all the layers, bridge, outro, and then conversely that allows me to see how the timeline has been used, and this is because this is the core skill for this assignment. It's important to see all of this information. However this was combined, I'm not seeing that here. It looks like maybe individual MP4s or movie files were made and then combined together, and that doesn't allow me to see all of the work. But let's take a look at this. That's something I need to see in order to confirm that this was done according to the processes from the video tutorials. But let's just take a look at the results and see how it plays. Okay, that's moving. I would say that's actually a little too slow. That's a nice transition there. I'm not sure what these words mean, or symbols. If maybe the carrot should be sort of being pulled out of the ground. And again, that's a little too slow. It's close, but a little too slow. And again, moving a little too slow. I don't believe that I've seen these posters. So the posters themselves need work, but that's feedback that has to be given to that assignment. If I'm looking solely at the timeline and what's going on in the timeline here, I'm not able to see comprehensively how the timeline has been used because of the way that these have been combined together. They should be combined together not as MOV files or MP4s into one singular Photoshop. They should be combined as folders that have all of the individual layers from the intro, bridge, and outro.